I'm finding more and more young people that are willing to and wanting to get it right the first time. I've worked with several kind of young 20 somethings that are like, I just need to figure this out. And they're going to be set for a lifetime because they're figuring these things out so soon. And then, those in their 30s or 40s are like, okay, I've been doing it the way that I thought that I should do it. It's not working. Like I'm stressed out. I'm frustrated. I'm living paycheck to paycheck, or I'm just not making it to my goals. And like, am I ever going to retire? Like what's left? What's left for me?
Welcome to Imperfect Momming. Our children are constantly looking to us for examples. The term role model doesn't quite cut it here. We are shaping their worldview with every move we make. You see, it's not in the lectures we give or moments where we are actively attempting to teach them. It's in the micro movements we make, the unconscious ways in which we navigate life. We are constantly teaching our children how to show up for themselves, their friends, their future partners, and even their future children. So what can we do to ensure we are raising thoughtful, compassionate, self-aware human beings? We have to become them ourselves. No one is perfect, but we can still all be better, and it starts with self-healing. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Imperfect Momming. I am your host, Alicia Lyons, and we have a very special guest today, Sarah VanHoose. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. So tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. I am a financial coach. I help people become more intentional with the important things. Your favorite resources, your time, your talent, and your money. I work with a variety of people from individuals to couples to entrepreneurs and small businesses. Again, working on that same theme of being more intentional with your time, your talent, and your money.
Those are three very important things.
Yes. Yeah.
The time you don't get back.
Right. It's the great equalizer, really. There's 24 hours for everybody. So making sure that you're using it the best way is so critical.
I always thought that was interesting. I was in a direct sales company, and we used to talk about, what is there, 168 hours in a week?
Sure.
Something like that. We'll say that's it. And then you take out the 40 hours of if you're working a full-time job and an hour to commute there and back, and like subtracting all this stuff. And then there was still like 20 hours, 8 hours of sleep. And then there were still like 20 hours.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't feel like you have 20 hours.
Yeah. But it's those little tiny banks that we forget about. It's like the 15 minutes here and the 30 minutes there and the 1 hour that we just spent like scrolling on Instagram that we didn't mean to do. It's all of those things that add up to that 20.
Mm-hmm. And the grocery store. And
right. Yeah. And the kid drop off, and then the kid pick up, and then and then finding the shoes for the kid. It all adds up.
Right. The 5 minutes that we spent before the podcast sitting in the toilet. My son couldn't find his shoes and had to bring me my wallet to go to stuff and all that stuff.
Real life.
Yeah. And then talents. Talk about talent.
Yeah. It's really about like making sure that you're working or spending the most of your time in your sweet spot, whatever that is. We all have something a little bit different. But like I'll take some of my mothering duties as an example. I am not great in the kitchen. So like making dinner, like, not my favorite. My husband usually like takes point on that because it would take me longer. It would be a little dramatic. It's just not a good time really for me to be in the kitchen too often. So I'm better at breakfast. And I am better at doing some meal prepping, making sure I'll go to the grocery store, right? So put me in my sweet spot, like put me in coach, but put me in the right spot, so that everybody sort of is flourishing the best way.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that there's a lot of old programming that we deal with where, mom does all the cooking and all the laundry or all the chores. But mom's also usually going to work and taking care of the kids and all of the things. And so then all of our basket gets overloaded with a bunch of stuff that could be delegated out.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when I work, especially with entrepreneurs, right, around this like sweet spot work is really focusing on like what do you do best? Why did you start this business? Like what is that core thing that you do really well? And then all of a sudden you became a bookkeeper and you became an accountant and you became the billing and the invoicing and the customer service and like fill in the blanks. Get back to your core of what you really love doing. You can do, instead of spending even like 6 hours a month doing these other things, you could go create more revenue working in your sweet spot, and you could easily hire those other tasks out. It's that idea that we really need to be focusing in on our sweet spot a majority of the time.
My problem is that I hire it out and then I'm like, ooh, free time.
It also can be valuable too, right? Depending on what you're looking for in terms of that time budget that you're working with. Like if maybe you need more margin for more downtime or free time.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yes. And then now let's talk about money, everybody's favorite subject.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not yet everybody's favorite topic, which is why I guest on these things so I can try to talk about money and make it a little bit more normal to talk about. There's still a lot of stigma around not being where you quote unquote should be with your money at a certain point or at a certain juncture. And frankly, our generation, right? We're not taught well how to deal with money. So it's not formally taught in colleges. It's not formally taught in high schools or middle schools. We are just sort of kind of left to figure it out on our own. Maybe you've got a little instruction from your parents or where you grew up. But most of the time we are catching more than we are really being taught. It's caught more than taught, right? And we either had great examples or we could have had poor examples. And even if you had a great example, sometimes as children we don't see all the behind the scenes, and it really wasn't shared with us as much either. It wasn't our business to be understanding of what was happening in the household with money. So we're left in our 20s to kind of like try and figure it out. I see two things typically happen. Either we do exactly what we learned or we do the exact opposite of what we learned. And that either way, those could be positive or negative outcomes.
I feel like that's something that we do in our parenting too, is we look at the example that we had, we decide how we felt about that, and then we'll do exactly the same or the exact opposite. And we throw the baby out with the bathwater. And that's not good parenting. It's not good for money. It's not good for life. Like I think the one thing that I learned that I didn't know that everybody didn't learn is take what resonates and then leave the rest, but also learn what you want to do instead.
Right. You often have to fill the gap. I love that. Like take what's good for you, like pick up this nugget and that nugget and the other nugget. You don't have to take the whole thing, and then just make some peace with choosing to do something different. Or, if you're in a partnership, like you're blending some of those things together and you get to pick out these different pieces and then determine some of your own components as well. So when it comes to finances, making some peace around those components is really important. I don't know about you, but I picked up like a little bit of debt when I, left home and went to college. I got a T-shirt and a credit card. We're giving all kinds of great incentives at that time. So carried around some debt, and then there's some shame and some guilt that come with like, oh gosh, I can't believe that I'm in XYZ amount of debt. I can't believe that I agreed to this payday loan, and therein lies the stigma and the inability to talk to anybody about it. Oftentimes people are too shy to even talk to their best friend, their sibling, like really anybody else about it. These are secrets that are kept that slowly can really kind of eat away at you. So talking about money, kind of normalizing it. We are all learning here. We're all figuring things out, and there's a way to manage your money well to help you get to your goals.
Yeah, it's just, I actually was talking to my last guest about, people think that they can't talk about their struggles in parenting. And so the same is true about struggles in with money.
Yeah.
But if you can't talk to anyone about it, then how can you improve your situation or change your situation for the
Yeah.
better?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's getting, what I find most successful is that there has to be some level of really like pretty strong desire to make a change. You have to be frustrated enough or just really tired of like the repetition of doing the same thing and not getting the results you want, that insanity cycle until you're like, oh, okay, like this is not working. And I find too, I'm finding more and more young people that are willing to and wanting to get it right the first time. I've worked with several kind of young 20 somethings that are like, I just need to figure this out. And they're going to be set for a lifetime because they're figuring these things out so soon. And then, those in their 30s or 40s are like, okay, I've been doing it the way that I thought that I should do it. It's not working. Like I'm stressed out, I'm frustrated, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, or I'm just not making it to my goals. And like, am I ever going to retire? Like what's left? What's left for me? So once you kind of get to this point of like, okay, I'm done, I need to seek out a little bit of assistance. And then it can be pretty freeing. Really, I'm sure that you see it too. We're like, okay, I just need some help. And the strategy, that we're implementing, it's not rocket science. It's not. You don't have to have this. You don't have to spend hours and hours figuring out how to do it. You just sometimes need this little perspective shift or a little different plan of attack or a little different roadmap in order to get you to where you want to go.
Mm-hmm. I had hired a finance coach one time, and I remember talking to her about I was decent. Like, so I've been self-employed for 14 years, essentially. And there were, people will say, take your lowest earning month and create a budget from that. Well, you don't want to know what my lowest earning month is. That you can't create a budget from that. And I said, I think that the thing that frustrates me about money or about being self-employed and having this fluctuating income is like, I can pretty consistently pay like my bills, except for the ones that I called the randoms, right? They're the random bills, like the trash is every 3 months and your car insurance is every 6 months and your registration is once a year and so on. So just these random ones that would pop up. And she said, so take all the random ones, and I'm using air quotes because I clearly just gave you it's a
nice little list. Yeah.
They have a cycle. They're not that random. But I thought of them as random because they weren't consistently every month. And she said, take all those, add them up, divide them by 12, and take that and put it into a bank account. And oh my gosh, the difference when those bills popped up made me so happy.
Yeah.
Because I was eager to pay those bills when they showed up because I always had the money for them.
Yes. So it's so liberating. I call those the predictable unpredictables, right? Like, yes, they're same idea, but they always surprise people, but they're not really too surprising if you think about it. But it's not a regular bill. It doesn't happen every month. Doesn't happen on the same day. Everybody's pretty good about those ones, but it's these others that sneak up on you. The holidays come once a year, again, like shouldn't be too surprising, but if you always, buy out Costco for candy on Halloween or deck out your house, like you're going to have to spend, put aside a little bit of money for those things. So gifts is another one that comes up. X the number of people that you traditionally buy gifts for, like they're going to have a birthday next year too, like God willing. So plan accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah, it was truly just liberating to have that. And it shifted my energy around money because these randoms that had a cycle that I could have predicted, they would drag me down, and it filled the story that I had about money, that I don't have enough, or that I'm not in control of it, or that it can be, that I better spend it before somebody else takes it, was a lot of my money story.
Yeah, that's good. good recognition and a good strategy to employ for sure.
Mhm. So what's a piece of advice that you have for moms listening?
You have got to talk to your kids about money, and it doesn't have to happen before you talk to your kids about money, but you need to be clear on what your money story is. And you need to feel like you have some sense of control or some healthy habits with it too. I think with anything, whether we're talking about finances or how to do the laundry or, fill in the blank with whatever, chores we're teaching our kids, we want to show them how to do it the right way or the best way to do it. So same idea. You want to have some healthy habits in place for your money so that you can turn and help your kids have some healthy habits as well. I don't know about you. I envision this for most moms. Like, I want my kids to do better than I did. I want my kids to be more successful. I have 2 daughters. I want them to not get sucked into some credit card debt the moment that they walk out of my house. So I'm on a mission to make sure that we talk about money really openly in our house. We talk about how much we make. We talk about how much things cost. We talk about what the utility bill is and what do you get with a utility bill. Talk about taxes and what you do or do not get with taxes. So really having some age appropriate conversations to help them understand the world of money, how it works, what to do with it. I let them sit down with me when I let them. I mean, they're 12 and 15 now, and they're not super excited about doing this task anymore. They used to be a little bit more excited about it when they were younger. But we go through and we're like, okay, here's what the budget looks like for this month. And this is how much we're spending. And this is how much your dance class is. And this is how much we pay for your club volleyball. Again, like bringing them into the conversation, not to make them feel guilty or worried about expenses, but just to be transparent about it with some boundaries. Like this is a conversation that we have in our house. We don't necessarily carry this conversation outside of the house with your friends or their parents, but we want you to really have a good understanding about money. And there's easy ways for you to get your kids involved with making money and managing money early on too. And we can talk about that more.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I had a little anxiety when I gave my son, who's 12, his debit card.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like he makes $10 a week earn with his chores, and so he gets to, and every once in a while he starts spending some money on his video games, and I'm like, are we keeping in mind that you're spending more than you're making right now? Because that's something that you want to pay attention to, because you have the money, yes, and with Christmas you're going to want to spend some money, and so on and so forth. So it's I didn't have access to my money when I was a kid. I knew how much I had. I knew that I got money for Christmas from family members, and it always went into the bank, and I never spent any money. And I was so proud of like how much money I had accumulated. And it was essentially immediately wiped out when I was 18 to buy a car, and not the car that I wanted, but the car that was available for way more than I should have paid for it. And so that all these kinds of things contributed to that story.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that that's the hardest thing for me as a mom and a coach is like, how am I informing his future limiting beliefs? And you can totally drive yourself crazy that way.
Yeah. Isn't that true? Right. We've got a lot of responsibility here as moms, but I'm sure you'd agree. I'm sure you have several of these examples in the momming space, but I would much rather my kid make a mistake, low risk mistake, while under my rules, under my roof, where the error that they make in their debit card is $3.50, overdrawn, versus what happens where actually hurts their credit, or it really, it really is more detrimental to them down the road. So let's learn now with some, real life scenarios that help teach them so that they have better success in the outside world.
Absolutely. Yeah, my son is very conscious. He's aware of what things cost, and he feels bad about when we say, okay, create your Amazon Christmas wish list so we can send it to the grandparents. And he's like, but this is $30. And it's like, you can put something on your list. Nobody is required to buy that thing. Right. So it's your job to ask. It's their job to decide if that's something that they want to, how much they want to spend.
Right. Yeah, I love that. But creating awareness around what things cost, and compared to your income, like he was talking about his, his chores or his salary that he gets. There's a lot of awareness that happens within all of that, and responsibility. Like with my girls, they have some responsibilities around the home that helps. Like your household help is helping to ensure that, yes, I'm going to say yes to your fill in the blank, request.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's off at trampoline park.
Yeah, exactly.
And that came out of my money, not his.
Yeah.
Because he's still 12. Okay. Is there a book that's been instrumental in your journey?
Gosh, there probably are several. One of my favorite entrepreneurial books is by Dan Martell called Buy Back Your Time. I think of my favorite read of last year was that book. Dr. John Deloney has a great book called Own Your Past, Change Your Future. Love that. Money books. I'm a Ramsey preferred coach, so I've read lots of Ramsey books, and Total Money Makeover is probably classic when it comes to implementing that baby step money management philosophy. Time management. I probably have one for every genre of thing that I talk about or that I work on. John Mark Comer has a book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And that is one of my favorite books as well.
Well, now we have some reading to do.
I know. Right? Pick your poison. They're all terrific. Yes, depends on kind of what you like to learn about. And now, as I say it out loud, there was nothing that was like fun or fictional in that. They were all dig deep and figure your stuff out books.
I mean, that's what I love to read. I think that I read the Game of Thrones and I read Harry Potter, and that's pretty much the only fiction that I've read in my life since I was a kid. I remember reading Nancy Drew books growing up, but I got into the personal development stuff, and I'm reading The Untethered Soul right now. And I had bought a book from the wrestling twins, the Bella twins. They wrote a book, an autobiography, and I had it for the longest time on my shelf, and I never cracked it. And I was like, I want to know what's in this book. I'm not going to read it, so I'm going to get it on Audible, and I'm going to move the book along.
Sometimes you have to do that.
I had to.
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard of this book. My favorite parenting book so far has been Untangled by Lisa D'Amour.
Okay, I've heard of it, and I have not read it yet.
Okay, I have 2 daughters, and it is about the journey from girlhood to womanhood. Okay. And there was so much. I got so many good nuggets. I made peace with my childhood and growing up through the reading of this book, and as a mom of daughters.
Yeah. I was like, well, I don't have a daughter, so I might not need that. But then you said that, and I was like, okay, well, maybe that would help.
I
Still some
did.
applicable pieces, I think, for boys too.
Okay, cool. And my coach wrote a book called Daddy, Are You Proud of Me? And it's the father-daughter relationship.
Okay.
And obviously I'm a mother and I have a son, but I had a dad and I was a daughter. And it healed a lot of that relationship. And it's informed a lot of my parenting with my son, that I think has been just instrumental in my parenting. You can learn stuff from everywhere, and back to my original point, take what resonates and leave the rest.
And leave the rest, right? You don't have to write a thesis on it, right? Just take what you want and then move along.
Yeah. 100% my advice for reading any parenting book: take what resonates and leave the rest, because you will get 100,000 different points of view in different parenting books. And what I like to do is, when I find an author that I like, that I resonate with 75%, then I buy all of their books. I read all of those.
Yeah, when you find a good one, you wanna hear what else they're thinking about, what else they're writing about, what else they have to share. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
What is where can our listeners find you?
My favorite place to hang out would be on Instagram. Over at Journey to Influence. And then my website is myjourneytoinfluence.com.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for being my guest today and sharing all of your, well, maybe not all of your wisdom, but some of your wisdom with us.
Yeah, at least a solid 25 minutes. Yeah, thank you, Alyssa, for having me on.
Absolutely. And there will be another episode of Imperfect Momming for you all coming next week. And until we meet again, keep healing. Bye, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to Imperfect Momming. It's time for us to step up and realize that our power is not in trying to shape our children. Our power lies in shaping ourselves into the people we want our children to model themselves after. Don't just do it for your kids. Do it for yourself. When you become a more self-aware, compassionate, and confident person, you and everyone around you benefit. For more information about me and my work, visit AlysiaLyons.com. That's ALYSIALYONS.com. See you next time.